So we've finally gotten some actual sports news. It's been far too long, and even this isn't total news, but it's something interesting. Dalvin Cook said he's no longer going to participate in any team-related activities until he gets a reasonable deal, at least according to him. So basically, he's holding out, which is interesting, I think, because for one thing, I believe that there are new rules to holding out, unless I'm mistaken, because he's still on his rookie contract. But it's been very hard to figure out the exact terms. But my understanding is that you can't hold out for 10 weeks and then have play the final 6 weeks and still get credit. The way it works is that if you hold out, you don't get paid for that year, but then the next year you become a free agent. So basically, he's saying either pay me or I'm sitting out, and apparently he wants something around like $13 million. And I mean, listen, if it's only a 1 year deal, I say there's actually some logic behind it, because I think that for 1 year, I have no problem paying a running back. My problem is paying a halfback for, those 4 year deals. Those are the ones that really tend to get you. But I think for 1 year, go ahead and give him some money. That's what I would do, maybe 1 or 2 years. But he does have injury history too, so, there's a lot of debate, but let's just get into the film study, what I like about Cook, and we'll talk about how good he is, because of course that's going to factor in. We'll start things off with this play, where what's going to happen on this play is that it's going to be a run closer to the left side of the screen, but this is Cook can pretty much do whatever he wants on this play. Minnesota, they run a lot of zone plays. They like to give their halfback and give their offensive linemen options. They like to sort of rely on their intelligence. That's kind of the Mike Zimmer way, is he kind of says, I'm going to trust you to make correct decisions. So on this play, the left guard and center will kind of double team a Redskins player, but then the center is going to move up to block a linebacker. The guard then tries to stay with the nose tackle, and then you also have a right tackle blocking another Redskins player. And the edge rusher on the right side of the screen is unblocked. And this is because, it's typically going to be a run to the left. However, as Cook runs over there, he notices that a Washington player moves pretty far over to the left side of the screen. So because of that, there is a gap in between the center and the right guard right here. The problem, of course, is that there's also a Washington Redskins player right there who totally will be able to run over and make this tackle. I mean, it'd be very difficult to run by him. So, that's a problem. But Cook, he reads this. He says, hey, there is a hole here. I'm just going to run forward and pick up as many yards as I possibly can. Gets a 5-yard run. And, that's not crazy. No one's going to say, okay, well, now he should, be a all-pro because of that one play. But a lot of plays like that really do add up. And when you can get a 5-yard run instead of just continuing to go to the left and only getting a 2-yard run or 3-yard run, that's a pretty big difference, actually, because, over the course of a game, those yards really do add up, and a 2nd and 5 is a lot easier than a 2nd and 8. There's also this play where, again, this is going to be kind of similar. This time it's to the right. There's going to be a lot of blocks moving over. You notice with Minnesota, they'll often have a lot of offensive linemen move over. On this play, the guard is going to move over to block a Redskins player, and then the tackle moves up to block a linebacker. The tackle stays with the Washington player until he has a chance. And what you're going to see happen is that actually the hole is going to develop a little bit further over. It's actually going to really be, they're going to have their center make a pretty good block, which means that there is a gap right there, but this is a different gap than Cook was initially running towards. He wanted to run one over to the right. So again, now he's going to have to make this read quickly, and he's also going to have the speed to get through, but once again, he has both of those things, and is able to pick up a big run on that one. And so those are the two things that really they want to use in this offense. Obviously, I get it, new offensive coordinator, who knows what they'll do, but at least what it was last year, it's a lot relying on a running back's speed, especially acceleration, and just vision. Obviously, all systems, that helps to have a running back who can be smart and fast, but this one especially. Cook also had over 500 receiving yards last year. A lot of it was through the screen game. Like on this play, it's going to be a screen pass, and a couple of offensive linemen will then move up to block, what Redskins players in the area. And what happens, after the ball is snapped, Cook gets the ball, and you notice that, okay, he's gotten past the line, so it already did a good job, but all those black circles, there's a Redskin player in each one of those circles. So, there's not really too much he can do right here. He should probably run sort of towards the middle of the field, but after that point, it's going to be pretty, not a great situation. But watch how he first makes one juke, then gets another one to the middle of the field, but then he's able to actually break things to the outside because he's really deceptively fast, despite everyone knowing he's quick, and they're able to, he's able to get all the way inside the 5-yard line. Just a tremendous play, and, that's the thing about a screen pass is a halfback has an opportunity where if he can make one or two guys miss, he can turn a decent play into a great play, and that's what Cook did right there. I also really like this play where you might be a little bit confused right now what I'm showing on screen because I'm showing a run to Cook's right, but the two blocks I'm showing are going to be a left tackle and a tight end blocking two Washington players. But the reason why I'm showing those two blocks is because they're going to really block both sort of towards the middle. And now, as you see, Cook is getting the ball, and I think this is probably intentional to try to do a fake right here. I mean, it's hard to tell exactly because, again, sort of with the zone running is that you start going to one direction but can continue going all the way over to the other direction if you feel necessary. But I think this one was actually intentional because now you see that there is kind of a clearing over there, but there are two Redskins players in the area. So, this is definitely nothing that's a gimme by any means. But one of the things I think is underrated about Cook's game because he is so fast and so shifty is people don't really talk about how this guy can lower the shoulder and, he can be somewhat of a power back as well. And watch how he does lower the shoulder and he's able to get into the end zone for a touchdown. He has that power and, of course, the quickness just to get there quickly. That acceleration is so key. So, yeah, I do think Cook is a very good player. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry. But one other thing that has to be mentioned in this negotiation process is who's behind Cook. That's Alexander Mattison. While Cook averaged 4.5 yards per attempt in 2019, Madison averaged 4.6 yards per attempt. So, slightly better. And admittedly, that was for Madison, it was just 100 rushing attempts. For Cook, it was 250. So you have to imagine that Madison's would have gone down below Cook's if he ran 2.5 times as much. But at the same time, it does kind of show that they were able to get pretty similar value out of Madison when he played, in a much smaller role. So when he gets that higher role, it probably won't be as much of a drop-off, which kind of reminds you of the Melvin Gordon holdout type thing to the Austin Eckler behind him. There wasn't that much of a drop-off there either. But that being said, while the Melvin Gordon holdout didn't work out too well for Gordon, it also didn't work out too well for the Chargers. They lost some games early on, and they weren't really able to recover, and Gordon didn't really feel like he was as good because he missed all of training camp. So it kind of hurt really everybody involved. So I do think that there is some real logic for both parties to make sure they get a deal done. But I do want to talk about Madison a little bit, just to show what they do have behind Cook. This play, for example, what's going to happen is that those are the blocks, and this is going to be a well-blocked play. So, it's not like a tremendously blocked play, but there is a gap where he can get through. But he's going to do this very well. Watch how he takes the ball. He's quick enough to get through and also strong enough that he's able to power forward. Doesn't quite get the touchdown, but is very close, and he picks up a solid gain. So he's one of those guys who he doesn't make any runs poorly. He's going to get what the offensive line gives him pretty much every time, which is definitely a key quality. But that's not to say that he can't go above and beyond the Call of Duty on certain plays as well. Like on this play, that's the blocking concept. But what's going to be key here is that you look at what's going on with that Dallas player. So there's going to be a double team, but then what's going to happen is that Minnesota's left tackle is going to try to get around him to block a linebacker, but that's a tough block. You have to get all the way around him and get over to block Van Der Esch, who's a very fast linebacker. And so it's not really going to work out very well. Van Der Esch is able to run through. So now the fullback who's blocking, he has to block Van Der Esch, which means that there's now a defensive back who can run over and try to make this play on Madison. So, okay, not really Madison's fault right here, but watch what he's going to do. He's going to just be able to make a move, which allows him to get a ton more yards. So he is someone who, if he has to beat a guy, he can beat a guy as well, which is part of what makes him, a very good, one of the better backup halfbacks in the league, and probably a starting level halfback, pretty underrated, despite the fact that he really came out of nowhere last year. He was drafted in the 3rd round. It was the 102nd overall pick, so late 3rd rounder. But he really played very well last year, and sometimes 3rd round running backs can do very well, and he did. And he also just plays sort of like Cook, which I think helps in a lot of ways as well, where you don't have to try to game plan for having two different halfbacks. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. My take on it is I would give Cook saying he wants $13 million. I do feel like for a one select year, he is worth a good amount of money. According to Over the Cap, they currently have $12 million, so they could afford to give him some of that. Maybe they can give him like a $10 million contract, or maybe try to go up to $13 million, but they would have to move some money around in order to do that. Maybe restructure a contract or two to make that happen. So it could happen. And if I'm Minnesota, to me, I do this. I don't risk not having Cook for this season. It's not worth that risk, in my opinion. I think you pay him, and you find ways to make the money work. And with that, you can then work on trying to potentially make a deep run, because I think they're a very good football team. So I would pay Cook, even though they do have a good backup option. At the end of the day, you'd like to be able to have 350 snaps with these two guys instead of just 250 with Madison and potentially 0 with Cook. It's not worth that risk to me. If he wants a 1-year deal, it's a no-brainer. I think I would even go up to a 2-year deal, but I would not want to make more than a 2-year deal. The length is where I would be cautious, not so much the dollar amount. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think about this? Because it's interesting, with the new CBA, holding out is more difficult to do. But that being said, there can still be some logic behind it. So I find it very interesting. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.